Hello, good morning. Well, Scotland Yard is now looking into whether there should be a criminal investigation into Lord Mandelson's relationship with the dead paedophile billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. It's after allegations he leaked sensitive documents to him from the heart of government.
Pressure's also building on Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson. They also feature in the latest drop of files from Friday, and we'll bring you all the detail on that in just a moment.
First, let's talk to Mari about exactly what is going on. So the police not yet investigating, they're reviewing, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. They're assessing the information and they've received several complaints, and so they are looking into whether that kind of criminal threshold has been met. They've given us a statement from the Met commander herself, Ellen Marriott, where she says the Met has received a number of reports relating to alleged misconduct in public office. The reports will all be reviewed to determine if they meet the criminal threshold for investigation, and these are realistically in relation to some of those potentially emails between Jeffrey Epstein and Peter Mandelson while Peter Mandelson was the business secretary under Gordon Brown as Prime Minister. Gordon Brown has now actually come out and said he also is quite concerned, being, of course, part of his premiership. He says he wants the Cabinet Secretary to investigate further into all of these emails and exactly what has gone on, and he's called it wholly unacceptable, and he wants the results of that inquiry to be published and to be made public. So we asked at the lobby briefing yesterday to the Prime Minister's official spokesperson about the Cabinet Secretary's investigations, whether they would be published, and they wouldn't answer us on that. So the real question is, once they do then finish looking at this, will we find out what they find out, or will they keep that behind closed doors? I think people are really going to want to know that. And of course, Peter Mandelson is this kind of shadow that's overshadowing Keir Starmer at a time when he's trying to talk about other things. He's just got back from China, and actually he's having to say, I don't want him in the House of Lords anymore, I want him to go, and basically talking about trying to find ways of getting rid of Peter Mandelson from the House of Lords if he won't go willingly, which is an extraordinary position to be in.
I guess on the question of whether he'll go willingly or not, we have a hint at that based on a Sunday Times interview, which we think was done partly before the weekend but updated on Sunday evening, which reveals once again a sort of lack of awareness of the scale of all of this.
I think that's the tone that a lot of people have got from this article in the Times. I think people feel that, and you were speaking to Karen Smythe earlier about this, and she seemed to suggest that he doesn't maybe understand the seriousness of some of these emails and some of what has come out in these files, and how that's going to make people feel, how that's going to make the public feel at a time where trust in politics is perhaps already lower as it is, and actually that needs to be replenished, not depleted. Let's go through some of the quotes from this article and this interview, because they are quite surprising, let's say.
Good adjective to use,
Let's
Mari.
be diplomatic. So first of all, he says perhaps he wanted, he's talking about Epstein here, perhaps he wanted to be a mentor, and I was naive in regarding him as a good faith actor. There was no reason to shun his advice, but I was too trusting. He then goes on to say, hiding under a rock would be a disproportionate response to a handful of misguided historical emails, which I deeply regret sending. If it hadn't been for those emails, I'd still be in Washington. Emails sent all those years ago didn't change the relationship that I had with this monster. I feel the same about the recent download of Epstein files, none of which indicate wrongdoing or misdemeanour on my part.
Wow.
Yeah, they speak for themselves, don't they?
But again, just to go into the detail, we think this was a late Sunday night when the latest cache of documents was out, but all of the analysis hadn't necessarily come out. Because if it is proven that many of these emails that we're reflecting on today are his, it's very hard to conclude his final line that there's an overreaction or that there doesn't imply any wrongdoing. As it happens, not related to what many people have talked about Jeffrey Epstein for a long time about sexual crimes, but about government impropriety. Yeah,
I think the thing that is quite extraordinary is not just the tone of Peter Mandelson's response in that interview with The Times, but also the fact that realistically, if you look at the number of files that were released over the weekend, it is nigh on impossible that Peter Mandelson could have gone through every single one by the time he gave this interview on Sunday evening and had 100% guaranteed he was clear and happy with every single one of those emails in this enormity of files. So, to me, I think the thing that is surprising is that he felt it was a good idea to say nothing to see here before he had actually probably had the chance to go through them with a fine-tooth comb.
And also, the one person who knows what's in the emails is surely Lord Mandelson.
The guy who sent them.
You know, we are finding him out on Friday, but, you know, the whole thing is completely mind-boggling. Mari, thank you very much for talking us through that. And now we talked a lot about Lord Mandelson, so let's just run you through the latest emails involving Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and Sarah Ferguson.
Well, overnight, her charity Sarah's Trust announced it will close for the foreseeable future following fresh revelations about the former Duchess's relationship with Mr Epstein. More emails to Mr Epstein from a sender believed to be Miss Ferguson emerged on Monday, including 2 from 2010, which is after Mr Epstein's conviction.
So just to look through the detail of these emails, in one email, an account called Sarah told Epstein he was a legend and added, "I really don't have the words to describe my love, gratitude for your generosity and kindness. I am at your service. Just marry me."
In another email, a user called Ferg, which Sky News believes to be Miss Ferguson, asked Epstein when he was going to employ her. He replies that he will visit London in the coming weeks. The account called Ferg then responds, "My friendship is steadfast to the end, even after the body is cold. Love you now and always."
Now, it's important, of course, to give the point of view of Sarah Ferguson. The closest that we probably have is a 2011 interview where she said, "I would never have anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein ever again. I abhor paedophilia and any sexual abuse of children. It was a gigantic error of judgment." That is from Sarah Ferguson in a previous interview. And also, look, it's important to say, as we have been reflecting on, being named in these emails is not a sign in itself of wrongdoing.
Of course, all of this raises questions as to whether Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and Lord Mandelson would testify in Congress if formally requested to do so. James Matthews caught up with a member of the House Oversight Committee, which is conducting the current investigation on this matter, and asked about the need for Andrew to testify.
I want him to continue to come forward. We've asked him multiple times now to come forward and testify before our committee. We'll do it under his terms. But the more he hides, the more files we will find. And so we will find the information regardless of whether he comes to us and testifies. And so it's best for him to come and just tell us what he knows, try to clear his name as best he can. But until then, we're going to continue to probe and find more files. And at some point, I don't know what point, at some point, if we find more evidence of crimes, then the law enforcement, either here in the UK, needs to make a decision about when they should go after him.
Do you think that's a prospect?
I don't know. I'm going to let the evidence do the talking. But certainly if the evidence shows that he committed crimes and it's prosecutorial crimes that, he can be sentenced to, then certainly I think law enforcement should apply the law the same way they would anyone else.
And Lord Mandelson, do you think he should come to the United States and give evidence?
It's the same thing. And I don't care if you're, Democrat or Republican or Labor, whatever country you're in, whatever title you have, everyone who was involved or committed crimes should be held accountable.
So, look, pressure building for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor to testify, also Lord Mandelson as well. The people who have said that they'll testify are Bill and Hillary Clinton. They've said that they will appear before Congress. Here's our US correspondent, David Blevins.
The Clintons have capitulated. That's how they're framing it here on Capitol Hill. For months, Bill and Hillary Clinton had refused to testify before the Congressional Committee investigating Jeffrey Epstein. They said subpoenas issued by the Republican chair of that committee, James Comer, were invalid and not legally enforceable. The former president and former Secretary of State accused him of targeting them for opposing Donald Trump and vowed to fight this. But things changed when some Democrats on the panel joined Republicans in a vote recommending that they be charged with criminal contempt. If the Justice Department chose to prosecute them, they faced up to a year in jail and fines of up to $100,000. President Clinton had offered to sit for a 4-hour transcribed interview. Mrs. Clinton had offered to make a sworn declaration instead of testifying. But the chairman of the committee described that as a desire for special treatment and an affront to the American people's desire for transparency. Bill Clinton will be the first former president to appear before Congress since Gerald Ford did so way back in 1983. When President Trump was subpoenaed by the committee investigating the January 6th raid on the Capitol, he sued the panel and they backed down. Bill Clinton was acquainted with Jeffrey Epstein, but has said he never visited his private island and ended contact with him 2 decades ago. Hillary Clinton says she never met or spoke to Jeffrey Epstein.
Be a very, very high-profile hearing. If it's fully televised, rather than behind closed doors, everyone will be watching.